I'm spending a slow action to aim down the street and a fast action to fire a single shot at that target in the open. Well, the Germans just used their impulse to move into my line of sight, so I'm going to use my impulse to fire at them. If you strip away the artwork and look of your favorite tabletop role-playing game, you aren't just playing an RPG, you're playing a mutated wargame. Now, if you're on this channel strictly for the hex-and-counter wargame content, you're probably thinking, Joe, you're crazy and you're wasting our time. Because we aren't talking about that kind of nebulous theater of the mind type combat that might occur in some tabletop role-playing games. We're actually talking about simulation. We're talking about friction, resource management, and the grid. Where combat isn't a narrative speed bump, it's a complex tactical puzzle. We're going to look at the shared DNA of hex-and-counter wargames, or even just tabletop wargames like miniatures, and the way combat works in role-playing games. To understand why these worlds overlap, we have to look past modern marketing. RPGs didn't crawl out of a creative vacuum. They literally crawled out of the ribs of late 60s and early 70s miniature wargaming. The transition wasn't just a reinvention of the wheel. The designers took the wargame rules and they zoomed in from that kind of, let's say, squad or platoon level or even operational level all the way down to its most granular level, the single individual combat soldier, or whatever genre of wargaming it might be. And that became the core basis of the role-playing system. Now, if you've only ever played mainstream role-playing games, terms like opportunity fire or zones of control might sound like sterile, intimidating military jargon. But here's the secret. You already know how to do this. When your fantasy fighter stands in a doorway to block an enemy, you're establishing a zone of control. When your rogue waits for the wizard to cast a spell before shooting an arrow, you're exploiting an action economy. And when you take an attack of opportunity because an enemy ran past you, that is literally just Overwatch under a different name. Core logic's identical. The only difference across these tables is the level of magnification. To see what I mean, let's look at the same situation in the two different systems. A soldier or soldiers caught out in the open. Level 1, the squad layer. In Old School Tactical, Volume 5 in this case, you spend an impulse to move a unit or to attack. Your opponent can then trigger fire on their impulse when they have line of sight. You roll on a combat results table to obtain the result. The system doesn't care about the individual rifleman's inventory. It tracks small unit leadership and command friction. The result will tell you what happened. Do we have casualties? Do we take morale loss? Etc. Games like Compass Games' Combat Eastern Front bridge the gap. This is a hex-and-counter war game, but it operates at the man-to-man level. You aren't managing a platoon or a squad here. You're managing individual men. You give them an order, you pull a card that will tell you how successful they are in carrying out that order based on their abilities and equipment. It is a tactical war game that functions with the exact turn-by-turn intensity of a role-playing game. Which brings us to the RPG simulation of this event. In Twilight 2000, you take that exact same man-to-man geometry from something like combat, but you layer in the ultimate degree of granular friction. You don't just check if you're hit, you manage fast and slow actions, you track weapon degradation and reliability, you count every single individual cartridge left in your magazine because you have a limited supply, and resupply isn't coming. The rules will dictate the results, not the GM's whim. Everything is based on a simulation core, just like they are in a war game. But when an RPG embraces its wargame roots, your survival isn't just a success, it's an achievement. When you escape an encounter with one round left in your rifle and a bleeding leg wound, that achievement feels real because it has emotional resonance and extreme detail. And that is something that war games sometimes can't give you, but because you're role playing and putting yourself in that soldier's skin and experiencing what they experience, mentally, so to speak, but there's a hard simulationist core behind it. That is the kind of thing that really is attractive to someone who is, a strategy gamer or a tactical gamer, because you see your actions determine your actions, your abilities, your equipment, all that stuff comes together to give you what the result is in a dramatic and realistic fashion. Wargamers are often role-playing without calling it that. I mean, we name our squad leaders occasionally, and we feel it when they fail. And role-playing game players are often wargaming without realizing it as well. They're counting hexes and weighing safety versus firepower. The border between these two systems doesn't really exist. We're weighing the same variables and looking at the same things and playing out the same sequences. It's just that we're looking at it from in many cases, from different scales. And obviously, there are things built around the combat piece that change things. I mean, a war game typically is mostly about the combat, right? Now, if you go up the scale in complexity to games like, let's say, OCS, you would have situations where you have to worry about supply and things like that. In a role-playing game, you have all of the kind of macro things around the combat, right? Because you're dealing with other things like finding camp and making sure you get food and water and all those things, right? That's the role-playing element kind of expanding around that combat core. But the reason I like role-playing games is because I enjoy that macro stuff, but I also really like the combat core because it's very personal and visceral, and that is something that is attractive to me and probably to many of you as well. Let me know down in the comments, what is the one mechanic that makes an RPG combat system feel like a true tactical simulation to you? We're done here for now. Thank you for watching. Quick shout out to my channel members as always. I do appreciate you guys supporting the channel, but we are done here for now. I'll see you in the next video. I'm Joe, and this is Hex-and-Counter. Happy gaming.